Well, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where everyone is in the world today. So happy to be back after a week of disruptions to our
Yeah.
flow,
Yeah.
which happens. And luckily, we have each other and the mindsets and the tools that we need in order to weather these storms, because I think they can very easily become overwhelming if you let them. But how have you been, Laura?
I'm good. We were just, of course, chit-chatting
Yeah,
before. Same thing. I was thinking about even the natural flow of disruptions and how to
right,
recalibrate them in so that they become like advancing mechanisms rather than negative distractions, or they
right.
almost, for me, they can try to pull you back into old thinking, old ways of being, and really wanting to impart this knowledge to the listening community of the feeling of empowerment when you see them coming and they catch you a little bit, and then you turn it on its head and you come up, right? Almost like when you get caught under a wave and you get tossed a little bit under the turbulence, and then
Yep,
you come up and you're like, yeah, I made it through, and you catch that breath, and then rather than run into the shore, you go back in to catch another wave because it turns into fun rather than fear. um, so I'm good. I'm have a lot of energy. I sat in on some very cool high level mastermind group sessions this weekend, and it really has me pumped to share some information with
oh,
everyone.
beautiful.
Yeah.
Well, that I think brings us quite nicely to our topic for today, which is all around investment into self. And more importantly, and I love that, Laura, that you brought this up, more importantly, giving ourselves the permission to invest into ourselves. Because I think that more often than not is something that holds people back. I work in, well, I suppose not a lot of people do know this, but I work in sales and I sell high value courses for people to help change their lives and change their mindset and all the rest of it. And it's so interesting when I come across a client who can afford it financially, absolutely can, but you will often just see this slight resistance, this mental block
Yeah.
towards actually committing. And when you break it down, it's this fear of, but if I do this, am I going to be able to look after everything else that I need for myself? Have you ever
Yeah.
come across that in your personal?
Absolutely. Yes. And, for any of us that are, entrepreneurial engineers, for us, any of us that are redesigning our life, so many of us have gone through a lot of changes over the last few years and have lost jobs or have had to take second jobs. When you're creating a coaching, consulting business and going into that lane of servitude into the masses, and looking how to calibrate that into a business, you even hold this sometimes state of, you know, um, trepidation. Can I do this? Should I do this? How can I do this? How do you continue to pay your rent and your mortgage and all your utilities while you need monies to invest in the business? But this is
Yep.
what I appreciate about what you and I are doing. We are a real time example of this. We are hustling beautifully and in a positive way on so many levels behind the scene, talking it through, whether we're texting, we're communicating, whether through our all of our podcasts, we're letting everyone know we know what this is like. We're not
Yep.
super wealthy, sitting on top of an island, driving, a Lamborghini and telling you what to do. We are moving through the process of entrepreneurship so that you can see the flow, you can hear what it is to move through it and not give up, to keep that momentum, that tenacity, that fire in your belly and keep going. And then when we experience it, this is what allows us to be great consultants and coaches and move into this leadership position because there's an authenticity. We know what it feels like. So even, and I don't know if you've done this, and this is, part of what you and I are structuring within the business and having different levels of what we can offer. So someone that's at the very beginning that maybe can afford $1,000 of investing into themselves through what we're putting together, someone that can afford 3,700, 5,800, 10,000. There are tiers to life, there are steps. And so I think what's coming to me right now is to put this thought out there for anyone listening. Just take a step, one step. And this is part of giving us permission, whether again, it's drinking more water, taking one supplement, finding time for a 15-minute meditation, a 20-minute walk, one step. And you and I know this, we have taken 3,800 steps in the
Yep.
last couple years to get there. And had we not just begun, what's all starting to come into play would have never happened.
And that is, I think, the one thing that I tend to struggle with, and I know a lot of our listeners probably do as well, those small incremental steps that need to be taken, because we do live in a society of immediate gratification where you want to invest in this or you want to get across this course and you want it now, right? And that's not always how it's going to be able to work out.
Right.
And something that kind of occurred to me as I was thinking about the topic for today was sometimes when we cannot physically and financially afford something, an investment into ourselves, it's a sign from the universe that we might not be quite ready for that specific step. It doesn't mean we shouldn't invest in ourselves. It doesn't mean that we shouldn't take a step. It just might be
Right.
that that step needs to
Right.
happen a little bit further down the line. So, I often will say to people who go, well, I can't afford $1,000, $2,000, $5,000 on a course to help set up my new lifestyle. And my response is, well, there's so much free information out there that will help you get started. There's
Right.
so many resources. If you know how to do a proper search on YouTube and Google, you can find a plethora of information on starting a business, on health and wellness, on nutrition, on mental well-being. All of these things, all of this information is out there for us to be able to use. It's not all just cat pictures on Instagram, right? There is a
Right.
lot of beautiful, uplifting content out on the internet, which 20 years ago, we didn't have that kind of access to information. You had to go down to the library and pick out an encyclopedia and hope to
Yeah.
God it was still accurate,
Yeah.
right?
Oh God,
um,
I don't even know if there's probably a whole massive generation that doesn't know what an encyclopedia is. You know,
I
I
can
don't know.
guarantee that.
Yes, they don't. And I was thinking too, this is the power behind the Shift and Co. This is what we are creating. This umbrella, this almost like this protective space where you can
Hmm.
come in and learn and grow with us. We cover so many topics, through the wealthy mindset about financial wealth and giving ourselves permission, whether it's $5, $50, 5,000, 50,000. It's the beauty of this experience is there's layers and textures so that everyone knows in this community that yes, there's going to be what they call high ticket, people, right? We see it on TV. We see it in movies. We see it in our neighborhood. We see it in our own homes. We understand what that feels like when, oh, maybe this month we are pulling back a little bit because we are going on vacation. We want to save up more money. Then we have other, times in our life where we're like, let's go out and have the most amazing dinner and drink and have fabulous desserts and not worry about it. Or you're going out to buy something for yourself. Like we all are in this practice of giving ourselves permission to treat ourselves. But there's something when we really go into investing, that
Mm,
investment energy is different than just the day-to-day breakdown. And again, this is what I love about what we're creating. There's several podcasts that we are already in the flow of and that we are creating so that people can come to the Shift and Co, which is our mission to really shift the mindset, shift the wealthy mindset, shift the way that you look at wellness and in its entirety, and how we will begin to offer these tiers of the one step. So again, if
mhm,
there's people that can't afford to go to a gym, but then you can go out and put your feet in the sand or in the earth or even in the mud with the rain and ground yourself. It sounds sometimes, I'm going to use the word silly to a mind that doesn't understand what that
yep.
investment in self looks like, but it really is true. It's this action that you take that the mind body consciousness starts to become awakened and it realizes I'm doing something that's going to advance my life, my mind, my condition. And it's in that movement that starts to spark that hunger in us where we know we deserve more. We deserve differently than what we have. That isn't to put what we have presently in a negative. It means that we begin to invest in the expansion of our own experiences.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, as you were saying all of this, I had a thought that I'd like to, well, two thoughts actually that I'd like to put forward about why I see it can sometimes be difficult for us to give ourselves that permission to invest in ourselves.
Mm.
And the one thing that comes to mind is it can be a little bit overwhelming. I remember having a discussion with a friend of mine many, many, many years ago, and he'd embarked on this whole journey of self discovery and self exploration and self development. And not even halfway through, well, not that there ever is an endpoint, but very early into this journey that he was undertaking, he started to have little mini freakouts because he would come to me and say, I can see the changes happening, but I don't know what I will be and who I will be when this is done. And that in and of itself would start to create stress for him because he's going, I want to continue this journey. I want to push forward. I want to be the best version of myself. But what is that going to look like? Will I like that person once I'm done? And when we actually went into it a little bit deeper and we sat and we really spoke about it, and it came out that what was the actual fear that he was having was more that other people who are currently in his circle might not
Mm.
like who he was becoming. And I see that a lot in myself, in my clients, in my friends. When they start these journeys, the biggest concern, usually subconsciously, is what's going to happen to my friends?
Right.
Will we still be friends after this is done? Will my family still like me? Will my spouse still like me? Right? Because you are changing. So it stands to reason that change causes stress, right? That change
Mhm.
is going to cause people to look at you differently. That might sometimes be in a challenging way, that might sometimes be in a very supportive way. It all just kind of depends on where that person is in their journey. But I do think that fear is sometimes a huge stumbling block almost for us to engage in that self development.
So I have two things. I want to share a quote, and
Mm,
it came to me from a friend, but not knowing where she found it. And I have it. It's right here on my backdrop in my office, and it says, "Maybe you've been assigned this mountain to show others it can be moved." And I love this because a mountain, right? And for some of us, that overwhelm is a mountain. It's what's that old saying, right? That old adage, moving mountains. I can't.
Right.
I can't move a mountain. I can't climb a mountain, all of that. And I love this. So this for me goes so beautifully in. And I have this up when I work with all my clients. When we are in fear that as we grow, evolve, and shift, people will not either, as you said, support us or even like the new me. What I have
Mm-hmm.
found in my life is the people that have really loved me all along, even if there's layers of dysfunction and right family angst, and that there's all these issues that we deal with that are always there. The fundamental aspect of love and support somehow reworks itself through change, and
Yep.
the truth and the authenticity remains. Now, there's also another adage that, right, we are the collective of the 5 people that we really spend the most time with, or that we count on, or that are in our life. And I'm going to say this, that we are here to evolve, we are here to expand, we are here to advance. And if there is anyone in your circle that would not be in support of you evolving, advancing, growing, shifting into a higher, better version of yourself, then that is a relationship, a connection that you need to look at anyways. Every move you make towards a positive elevation, a positive advancement, a positive action of growth, everyone around you should not only applaud it and support it, but also want to be inspired to do that for themselves. This is where we start to see that contrast of, what does that relationship mean to me? Why am I staying connected to it? If they're not
Mm.
supporting me, it's not a judgment, it's an observation. And then what you have to deal with, and I write about this in the Science of Empowerment, um, often it's this reiteration of this. Sometimes you have to let go of those anchors, that tethered energy. Why did we
Yes.
hold on to that? What did that represent for me? Now, I'm not talking about mom and dad, sister and brother, though sometimes you have to disengage from those relationships
Hmm.
for a time while you're growing and advancing, until you become very empowered and very grounded in that movement, where when you speak your truth, your newfound truth, it has, again, I'm using this word today for some reason, it's coming up, that authenticity, where the people that were standing in judgment, they realized it was their own block, their own fear,
Mm.
their own resistance to exploring that
Yep.
growth with themselves. Here is where we begin to empower one another.
That is actually so deep, because this is something that I kind of see all the time, where I've run into situations with people in my friend circle who were challenging about my growth and all the rest of it. And, oh, do you think you're better than us now? Do why aren't you doing all the things that you used to do, etc., etc., etc. What I find interesting is when you stick to the growth, when you stick to that authenticity, in time, because authenticity is truth, right? And truth, well, how does the saying go? Um, there are 3 things that cannot be long hidden: the sun, the moon, and the truth.
Yeah.
And if you stick to that authenticity, if you stick to that truth, then it becomes very difficult for people around you to continue challenging that growth, right? Because they start to realize that it wasn't just a phase. It's not just it's not coming from a disingenuous place. It's literally you just trying to be a better human being. And as you say, it's so beautiful to then see how people around you start to get inspired and start their own journeys. It might not mirror yours, it might be in a completely different direction, but you will start to see people around you going, huh, well, Laura did that.
Right.
So what if I can't do something similar? Why not?
Right. Or again, just enjoy the expansion of one another. We all understand the negatives in our world right now. We see it everywhere. The
Yep.
poverty of mind, the poverty of consciousness, which is why it reflects out and around us. The inspiration comes from using the mind and the power within the mind to shift those conditions so that we all start to uplift. And it can be as simple as taking a walk every day and asking a friend to go on that walk and
Yep.
expressing to them how just getting out in the fresh air, whether it's fall or winter and you're bundled up, whether it's the beautiful
Mm.
spring and you're observing the flowers, whether it's the amazing heat of the summer sun. Let's go out. Let's be out in our environment, literally using that as a metaphor, out in our environment. Let's
Mm.
expand. And if we physically start to do it, then while we're walking and we're talking, we're naturally going to expand what's inside. And really, this is where leadership comes in. And leadership could be within your own home. It could be between two people. It could be a love affair where there's been a lot of disruption and dysfunction, and one person is at a point and they're like, I've had enough. And I love you. And I see the beauty and I see what this can be, but not this way. I am going to take steps to better myself. I want to extend my hand. Will you come with me? This could be in work. This could be in the way that we create, a corporate environment. However you want to look at it,
Absolutely.
these are the fundamentals to the human condition. And for anyone out there that is holding themselves down or back into the process of shifting to a higher level of being, please let that thought and that connection to that holding, let it just dissolve, because you holding you back is holding the collective back. And whether you want,
Mm.
yeah, and whether you understand the quantum fields of energy of what I just said, don't worry about it. Just remember that you holding yourself back is holding the collective back. And we don't have time as a collective to be held back anymore.
We thank you. We do not. But
No.
something I want to reiterate that you brought out there, which we spoke about at the outset, just start. Get out into your environment. That is one of the key things. It sounds like such a small thing, like you said, like almost silly, but it
Right.
really does give you the space for your soul to expand, for new ideas to drift up to the surface. I see this all the time whenever I have something like a problem that I just can't seem to figure out and I can't find a solution to it. Laura, I will often just be like, right, I'm sorry, I have to go for a walk on the beach. I'll be back
Yes.
in an hour or 90 minutes.
Yes.
And I'll just put my headset on, play some music, and I will try not to think about the problem. And inevitably, within 15 minutes, a beautiful solution presents itself to me,
Yeah.
as though from out of just nowhere. But I bring that up because, again, it sounds like such a silly thing, but just a little bit of movement, just a little bit of that time investment
Yeah.
into ourselves really does have profound effects. I had a client who came to me the one day who said she really wanted to just actually start getting her health back under control. She was struggling with, well, I think like, well, not all of us, but like I do as well, the sweet tooth.
Yeah.
And she
Me
says, okay, well,
too.
I'm gonna, yep. See, we're still human. We're still human.
Yeah.
Um, and she was gonna join the gym, and she was gonna do all these things. And then she joined the gym, and we'd have our session. I'd say, so how was gym this week? No, it didn't really go. Okay, why did you not go? Well, no. And we'll go into a little bit, and it turns out just this little bit of fear, this little bit of apprehension around it, right?
Right.
So eventually I said to her, how about you just every day go for a walk around the block for a week? Just do that. Don't go to gym. Just take a walk around the block. Still have your sweet things, but cut it down by 10%. That's all I want you to do for this week. And she looked at me and she goes, but that's not going to do anything. I said, just
Mm,
1 week. That's all, just 1 week. She did it. By the end of that week, she was in gym. She
yeah.
was on her eating plan. She was living a much healthier lifestyle. And it started with just taking a walk around the block. I think we overwhelm ourselves with what we're wanting to do with our investments into ourselves. Like we said earlier, we often will say, oh, well, I'm going to buy a course on how to set up a business and expect to be multimillionaires overnight. That's not how it works, right? There's a lot of actually, how does the song go? Um, oh, I can't remember. Basically, it basically says, "Oh, everybody claps for you, saying, oh, your success happened overnight,' and they don't see all the work that went in before that, right? And it's the same thing with any form of self-investment. The work that you put in, I mean, ask a bodybuilder or a fitness athlete, it takes them years and years and years to achieve the physiques that they're wanting. Business people, entrepreneurs usually have to have, I think it's an average of 5.7 failed businesses. I use the word failed loosely. It's not really failure, but
Right.
5.7 businesses that don't work out the way they were planned before they suddenly get it right.
Which if I and I'm so sorry to interrupt, they actually did work out. It was part of the tier of the process to go
There we
through.
go. Yep,
And,
exactly.
my brother, Chris, who, was the creator of the J3 equals E formula that inspired me to write the book. He was a former or is a former USA Olympic gymnastics coach. And he used to tell me about the Olympians, and he was close to quite a few. Um, one of them in particular, the story of he had a notebook and his pen, and every day he'd go in the gym and he literally would write one, two, three, for all the way up. And it was about his 3033 time of the skill that he mastered it to the point where he knew he was now ready to go into the Olympics, and he won a bronze in that.
Wow.
Over 3,000 times. So I want you to think about that. The average mind will repeat negative patterns with no connection whatsoever and think it's okay. But when we
Yep.
go to ask you to begin a positive pattern, the resistance that comes up. So, what is that? How can we
Mhm.
shift our mind to understand the investment in self takes thought, takes follow through, takes habit, pattern, behavior? You will never move to that next level in an authentic, genuine way if you allow any negative connections to it, one step at a time. It has taken most of us decades to exist, not thrive, to exist in the patterns of the dysfunction of what we all do with our families, our relationship, the way we look at ourselves. But if you made that mind shift, take that choice and say to yourself, today is that day. I'm going to drink more water. I'm going to eat less sugar. I'm going to take that walk around the block. I'm going to reach out to a friend to get together and share this expansion of thought. I'm going to actually tap into the stream of expansion the way others do. And I'm not going to observe how others are doing it. I'm going to become a creator of how to do it for myself, because then I move into that position that I can then have that positive influence with someone else to help them move. And again, I keep coming back to this almost gentle universal hand on the small of our backs to move us along now. It is time to release the connection to the patterns of what is not working. If we're overweight, if we're drinking too much, if we are too lazy, if our work environment is unhealthy, if there are unhealthy relationships, ask
Mhm.
yourself, why am I connecting to the energy that disempowers me rather than the energy that empowers me? And that is what we are doing here. This is why we get up early in the morning and why Stefan and I are working on so many other things to support this message, to bring this community, to grow this millions strong. We're not stopping. We are going to
No,
continue to grow and build and be that example of leadership and real time application of what we're asking you to do, so that we have this movement of empowerment, this movement of shift into the wealth and investment of self.
thank you so much for bringing that up because it's something that's kind of been in my mind about sharing with our community as well. Because that's exactly what we're doing here, Laura. We're doing the work ourselves, and then we are sharing what we're learning with the collective, with our community, with our audience, right? This, like we were saying earlier, if you don't have the money to invest in a fancy paid course or a fancy, I don't know, nutritionist or whatever the case may be,
Right.
here's a perfect opportunity where we're providing a lot of beautiful information. It's not free, it still requires people to spend their time, which is their most valuable resource, but it's just there. We're doing the work, we're literally lighting the way through our own experiences, and then our community gets to experience that, gets to grow from it as well, and move forward on this journey with us. And like you say, we're not stopping. We are looking for a very, very, very large audience. We really want to help as many people as we can because why wouldn't we?
And again, when you were talking about, your client, who there was hesitation going to the gym because gym for many people, it's just daunting. It's like,
Yes.
oh my God, don't go to the gym then. Just go for a walk. Just go. All of us can go for a walk. And if for any reason at the moment you can't, you have an injury, or I have, a client that was wheelchair bound, and we talked about this. We talked about the upper movement, literally and figuratively, the upper here. How can you move your body? How can you move your core? How can you
Mm,
stretch? How can you expand? And because the body got sedentary, it got anchored in the trapped feeling, and we worked this through and we talked this through. Oh, something I'm going to share really quickly. My brother had a client that was a very dear friend of mine. Her brother, he was T-boned in an intersection, and
oh,
yeah, bad, bad. And he was, 6'4", educated, strapping man, very handsome, very successful, big builder in our community, beautiful wife, everything very lovely from the outside. Whoa,
mm,
boom, T-boned, paralyzed from the neck down, was
oh,
told he would never walk again, less than 5% chance of walking. Now, I want everyone to hear this, please, and hear this in the spirit of what we are sharing with you today. He went to, in the United States of America, went to the top 3 facilities where the best of the best were in place to help him move through this process of accepting the limited movement and basically carrying on from there. His wife was a client of my brother's, and how my brother, and I'm talking in the training, like gym life. I'm
mm,
just going to use that. We have a
right.
neuromuscular training facility. It goes a little bit deeper than that. We work mind, body, consciousness connection to the physicality of working out. So we're not just pumping weight We're pumping the muscles of expansion while we're getting our body in shape. So it's already that kind of environment. However, this woman goes to my brother, knowing my brother's mindset, knowing I wrote The Science of Empowerment, knowing that we believe that everything can be shifted. No present condition needs to stay the same. And I'm going to use your word, a plethora of examples of this, but I'm going to stay on this. This gentleman came in down here, no movement, but up here, came in a wheelchair with my brother to meet him every day. Okay, got wheeled in. She left. My brother took over. He walks now. He fishes
Wow.
with his children. He is on the beach throwing a football. And he did this because my brother worked the mind.
Yep.
The mind is our most powerful ally in shifting us out of a poverty mindset, shifting us from I can't to I am. I am capable. I am willing. I am empowered. He started with my brother got him ski poles just so he could start to pull himself up. I mean, I can't even go into the journey, but we all saw it. I get choked up with it. We saw it happen. So whenever I tell myself I'm too tired, I can't, I don't want to, I think about the depth of experience that this man pulled in to be hit, boom, 100 miles an hour in a car, to be jolted into this experience of truly, I can't move, to then have the experience to rework the expansion of mind body consciousness connection to walk again. So, anyone out there telling me, and I don't mean for the people that have true deep trauma, that are going
Of
through
course.
things at the moment and that physically are experiencing. So please understand, when we want to inspire and motivate and enrich your mind environment, to invest in yourself, that even if you are in a present condition that is anchored in a present experience at the moment, begin to work the mind differently. The biology will hear you. The physicality will
Yep.
begin to respond. I promise you, there are ways to shift into the beauty and the empowerment of investing in yourself.
Thank you for that incredibly powerful story, Laura. Wow,
You're welcome.
I'm blown away. It's just I've heard stories like this before, but never firsthand accounts. So, thank you
Yeah.
so much for sharing that. That is just incredible. Seriously, just incredible. Now,
And
as
sometimes,
we start, yes, right?
that's what I was going to say. And sometimes we need to remind ourselves that it could be worse. I could
Mm,
be worse off. If you have your mind and you have the ability to move your body, start to connect those two together to advance your present circumstances.
absolutely, absolutely. As we start to wrap up today's episode, we normally like to share our final thoughts. I have one actually from your book that I'd love to share
Thank you.
because something that kind of struck me as we were chatting today around the fear aspect of being able to invest in oneself. The other thing that also sprung to mind is, and I hear this a lot, but if I'm doing all of this and I'm focusing so much on myself, is that not selfishness?
Mm,
Am I, taking too much away from my circle around me? And you've got this lovely quote in the book, which I actually wish I could have pulled up now so I could quote it verbatim, but maybe you'll remember it, where it essentially says that Our goal as humans should be to enrich the collective.
Yeah.
However, before we can do that, we have to first become a shining light.
Yeah.
So you have to pour that energy into yourself. You have to make yourself better. It's the old adage of fill your own cup. You can't pour from an empty cup, right? It's the same thing. You cannot uplift the collective if you are not in an uplifted state yourself.
And again, for many of us, there's a trickery that goes on. We
Mm,
want to think we're doing something. We want to think we're in servitude. We want to think and fill in that blank. But if you
mm,
find yourself still going to bed and waking up in the same mind environment and the same physical environment, and you're experiencing the sameness, there's a disconnect there. And when we actually invest in ourselves, and I said this before, and I'll say it for all the years that we're together in the Shift and Co. and everything that we're going to create. When we are in an authentic place,
mm.
mind, body, consciousness, physical environment, authentic, true, its truest place, the energy that we then impart, guide, inspire, enrich, motivate to others, you will see it actually work in real time. There's something about the frequency of gratitude, of advancement, of positive shift, of authenticity that actually begins to stretch itself, expand itself out to who we're involved with. So again, it's actually selfish to not invest in yourself. It's actually selfish
Yeah.
to stay in a place of stagnation. That means that you are holding on to negativity. So the beauty of expansion and investing in oneself, again, it causes this ripple, this vibration
Mhm.
out from us into the collective. And until we understand that investment in self means the energy of collective elevation, we will continue to see these mirrors and these reflections of all the distortion that is going around. Today, when you listen to this podcast, this should be the day that you've made a decision to become an empowered individual. Today is that day so that you can empower your family, your friendships, your work environment, your community, and the world at large.
Laura, as always, just summing it all up so beautifully. I mean, who wouldn't want to be that person? Who wouldn't want to help inspire everyone around them? So, yeah, that is just beautiful. On that note, we are going to love and leave everybody for a little bit. We'll be back at the top of the hour with the Wealthy Mindset podcast. Looking forward to that. But very happy for everybody to have been here with us today. As always, um, please have a look at the bio. Sorry, yeah, our bio at the bottom of this video with all the links to our different social media as well as to Laura's website. Please do look at purchasing the book and getting yourself a session with Laura. You will not regret it at all. And please do, if you like this video, like and subscribe so that you can stay up to date with everything that the Shift & Co. is doing throughout every week now. So, yeah.
Nice.
Thank you so much, and we will see everybody soon.
Bye.